All right. So I've chosen to go live this morning to make a quick video about my trading this morning. And I mean, it's already passed, but we're going to analyze what I did and how it came off and whether I consider this a good trading day or not. So right off the bat, and I wrote these things down as I was going. So this kind of captures the thoughts that I had at the moment. So I'm going to be going back and reading them and trying to remember what my mindset was. All right, so this is the 1 hour chart, as you can see right here. And this is the ES, of course. And we can see that it's very much uptrending, but we have made a new high overnight, and it has dropped down. It looks like the yellow, which is the 50, is the support level here, the 50 SMA. I'd like to see it closer down here to the 180 because that's definitely support. We did dip below it and test that a few days ago. And so, trading, obviously you want to go long. That's trading with the trend, short term and longer term. But trading and getting in when it's so high is really not the best place to be trading. Now, the MACD does look like it is ready to tip up. But it is only at the average line. I like to see it a little bit lower, like down here. That gives you more momentum to drive the prices up. But we are on a very long-term chart, which as a scalper, we don't really use very much. All right, so if we zoom in a little bit further to the 15-minute, now we're getting into more of the actual information that I would use to place a trade. And we can see that the 180 SMA here on the 15-minute chart is acting as a support. You can see it there and there. Didn't even come close to it over here. So we're definitely seeing that as a support, and we're going to mark that on the next chart, which is right here. And that right there is the place where I really doubt that it's going to go down below. All right, so I placed a possible trade. I haven't actually clicked the buy button yet, but I'm maneuvering my orders before I actually enter to see what my risk to reward ratio is. And this is kind of an extreme case. I usually don't make a trade that's that big. We can definitely see a consolidation period right there, which is why I thought, okay, well, this is the lower end of that, and that's a really good trade. So this gives us the room to actually place the trade. And I got in, I would like to get in closer down here to the SMA cluster that we see on the 5-minute chart, which is what we're at now. And I put my stop down here just below it. It is a little higher than that last wick down, but I usually don't like to have more than about $200 of risk on the table for each trade. All right, so this is kind of what I'm thinking by looking at the 5-minute chart. And then when I zoom into the 1-minute chart, I kind of refine it a little bit. I moved my exit order, my ideal exit place, down to the top of the peak here, which is still a little bit high, to be right honest about it. It should probably be, so I make sure that I catch it down a little bit lower, because I feel like looking at the charts, there is a higher probability that we're going to be seeing a bit of a drop this morning because it is so high. But I don't know that for sure, obviously. So, trying to catch it, not the top peak here, but just a little bit lower than it would be good. That's still a really good trade. So for my normal trades, that's often a little bit higher than even what I like to see. All right, and again, I've got my buy order ideally down here, and my stop hasn't really moved, and we can see that it's kind of a close to a 1 to 2 risk to reward trade here. So this is a decent trade. I've actually clicked the button to execute it, but of course, the price is way up here. My enter trade is right here, and so it's not filled yet. All right, so this is some of the news that's going on right now, some of the things that might be affecting what we're seeing. And there's a lot of uncertainty with that right now, which also might be the impetus to make it drop. So we'll just have to see. And as you can see, even though this blue line here is acting as a support, the wicks and the candles actually drop down below that and test that level. So I feel like this is in a pretty good spot right through here, but we'll just have to see. Again, it's uptrending, so I think getting in right here is not a bad place. All right, going back out to the 5-minute chart as time ticks on here. I see this, let's see, as a possible better trade. So I actually lowered my limit order way down here. And you can kind of see, look at it in levels here. You can see that right through here, and it continues a little bit right through here. There's a consolidation area right through there. All right, and then there's another one right through there. So these are the areas where we have a lot of trades going in and people getting out, people getting in. And it's really going to be interesting to see what happens at those levels. And it's going to be the extreme parts of those levels, the tops and the bottoms. And the bottom of this one kind of matches the top of this one. So we've got a lot of orders right through there. If you look at the MACD on the 5-minute here, it looks like it's starting to tip and drop. So I definitely think it's going to be dropping for the next move. The RSI here, which is our momentum indicator, this peak is a lot lower than this one, which matches with the candles, so it's not a horrible surprise, but it does kind of show us that people are maybe losing a little bit of interest in getting into a long, which is kind of what I thought this morning as well, even though it's really uptrending. I'm not sure going long is the best idea. So, dropping forever, how long, I don't know, but is a pretty decent bet there. But I chose not to go short just because it is uptrending. So I'm waiting for a drop to get into a good entry order here. Trying to figure out where that would be. All right, it's 8:54. I've been sitting here waiting. It's moving really slow. This is all that it's done since I started trading a little while ago. So I think I started to get a little bit impatient right here. And I decided that, okay, I can really raise this up to just below the SMA, and I really want to get in here. I think it's starting to show signs of bouncing off of that point. So I raised up my order to get in, and this is still a little bit high. I'd like to lower that down, and I think I do actually. Yeah, there we go. So I got in, and there was a red candle right away. I've got my stop set at $150 loss, so I'm not going to lose any more than that. But the potential for it to go up, I think, is there, and I think it could easily get up to that point. So I'm still looking at a 1 to 2 risk to reward, which is my minimum that I like to see. All right, and it was very slow, very tenuous, very it was kind of a boring morning, actually. Sat here and tried to kill time and not focus on it and get too wrapped up in what it was doing, that I couldn't think straight. I was distracting myself with other things, just waiting for the movement to fulfill its thing, and kept going up and then down and up and down. All right, and then here it made a drop. So the first order that I did actually was a loss for the day, and $150 loss. And unless I moved it up just a little, I can't quite remember what I did there. But it was a loss. And at that point, I kind of decided, there is a lot of push downwards. I think making a short at this point is not a bad idea. Now, in hindsight, I don't think this was a very good trade at all, even though it actually made money. The first one I would consider a good trade, and it lost money. So it's a strange way to look at it. So immediately after you have a lost trade, at least with me, I get frustrated, and it's really easy to slip into that revenge trade mode. So I think this is kind of what I was doing here. And there is that little part of me. This is what I tell myself is like, oh, okay, I got stopped out and I was guessing that it was going to drop. Now I know what it's doing, and I don't want to waste this brief window of time that I have for trading in the morning. And so I immediately jumped into a short. And just looking at it, it's like, well, it just hit the support. We're still trending up. This is a terrible place to get into a short. I should at least wait for it to jump up to here and show signs of weakness before I get in. But no, I waited no time at all. I just jumped right in. I did have my risk to reward ratio set pretty decently here. So, there is that, I suppose. But I think I just jumped in too soon. All right, I zoomed it back out to the 15-minute just to get some perspective. And yep, we're definitely seeing a tip downwards, a drop. And I think right here is probably a pretty decent place for it to find support. I really do. So I think this trade will be okay. I'm playing around with some levels here. I moved it down a little bit further, which is going to be a huge trade. So we'll see. And it went up a little bit, $50 loss right at this moment. All right. Now, this was interesting. It started to make this big drop. And it's not even the opening bell yet. So I thought, okay, well, this is a really good sign. It's only 9:28 right now, and already it's starting to make a big drop like that. So what you do in situations like this is take the risk off the table. So I did. I dropped it down to, I think, $150 thing. I think what I did, this looks like I raised it up to there. But I am certain that I didn't get out at my limit. I think I lowered my stop to lock in some profits, but unfortunately things move so quickly that I don't often get shots for every single trade. So we'll just have to go back and look at that one. So that would be my second trade. I made money. I had jumped in too soon on that one, but I would say I lucked out. I don't know that was the best of trades. All right, so let's kind of zoom out. This is still the 1 minute chart, but I'm looking at a much bigger section of it. And you can see that we had this big drop, and look where it dropped to. Remember that consolidation area right through here? It's at the lower end of that, or we're in the middle of it. So I fully expect it to find a support level right through here for at least a little while, enough for me to make it a decent trade and maybe to start going upwards again. I've waited 2 minutes after the opening bell. I usually like to wait more like at least 15. So it's still a little bit soon to trade, but that's kind of the movement that I'm expecting to see next, is for it to bounce and head up. All right, so this is the 1 minute chart again, but a little bit closer in, zoomed, and we're seeing some green candles. It's very tentative right now. It hasn't really for sure made that decisive turn, especially when it's moving this fast at this time of the day. It's only 3 minutes after the opening bell. But I've got a decently tight stop, and I think it's pretty good bet that it will rise up to this point. That's pretty conservative, honestly. It's not even to the SMAs yet. So I jumped into a long right through here with a fairly tight stop right there. And I got stopped out, which kind of surprised me, because then we had an immediate big green candle, which looks again like it's okay. So this is where I got stopped out. It jumped down to, look at that, the 15-minute 180, I believe, SMA. So that was actually the support that we hadn't quite reached, but now we've reached it. Now we've got a big green candle. This is the point where I should have waited. So that last trade, it was just too soon. And I could have looked at the time and seen that as well. This is still only 6 minutes after the opening bell. Again, I like to wait just a little bit longer than that usually. But, all right, so this is the time when I think we're a little bit safer to get into a long. So I did get into a long. I missed the first little bit of movement, but that's not terribly unusual or all that bad. Sometimes, you don't want to jump in too soon. So I got into a long here. Again, I'm hoping to get it up to this point right here. Even if I have to drop it down a little bit, I still think this will be a really good trade. I've got more than a 1 to 2 risk to reward. And this stop is just below the candle formation that it just made. So I think this is all a good setup. We can see that the MACD is starting to turn and go up. We can see the RSI, at least on the 1 minute chart, is very low. So there's a lot of space. It's very oversold. So there's a lot of movement that it will probably have going up. All right, so I'm pretty happy with this trade. All right, now as soon as I got in, it started to drop a little bit. All right, went out to the 5 minute just to make sure that I'm looking at this correctly. And you can see that the MACD is still kind of dropping. It hasn't really made that turn yet. Now the red candles that you see down here are that the last one it made is just a little bit shorter than this one. So we are starting to lose that downward momentum, but it actually hasn't quite turned yet. So just a smidge early perhaps. But again, I've got my stop set. I think I'm going to be fine. All right, here's the hesitation that we saw right there. That's exactly where I got in. And after a couple candles, it started to make a very strong move upwards. So of course, the best thing to do in that situation, I'm over $200 profit at this point. We've just passed through a resistance level right through there. That SMA, it just blew above it. So I just raised up my stop to lock in some profit. And I put it right at that SMA right there, because that is going to act as a support. So if it does drop down, I seriously doubt it's going to drop much further than that. And I'm still hoping that it will get up to this point. Not just hoping, but it's pretty likely. You can see that there's a consolidation area right through there. So there's a lot of trades, a lot of interest from people right at that point, right where I've got my exit order, which is a huge amount of money for me for what I trade. So I think this trade is looking good. There's no way I'm going to lose money on this trade. Minimum, I'll make 150. Maximum, around 500. All right. So now this is the point where I kind of freak out sometimes and get out a little bit too soon. So I did some other stuff. I was sitting here at the table watching it, but I was trying to not just stare at it the whole time because it's so intense. All right, so it went up. It hesitated right there, which is that intense part I was talking about. Never once did it quite drop below my stop. Came really close, as you can see. And then it started to make the rest of that move upward that I was expecting. And it filled. And so that last trade I made was definitely the best that I did. You can see this is the first trade, second trade, third trade, fourth trade, and fifth trade. So what I've kind of written down as my standard for what I like to see, what I would consider good trades. There's 5 different things to it. The first thing you look at is how many trades you made. And I like to make between 1 and 5. If you make any more than that, you're just kind of chasing things, and it kind of falls into the category of not being sure. And that's not a good thing. The next thing I look at is, are more than half my trades profitable? Or at least equal loss and profit trades. But if you are making that risk to reward ratio of 1 to 2 at least, and more than half your trades are profitable, you will make money in the stock market. Just think about it logically, So you can gain some, but lose some. And if you're making more positive trades than negative, that means that you're guessing, you're I don't know. It's pretty easy to understand, I guess. But yeah, so your percentage of correct trades, good trades, are going to get you that profit margin that you need. All right. And then, is my biggest loss smaller than my biggest gain? And that is also really important, as long as you're managing your risk properly. And it's more than just 1 to 2. Like I was talking about before, that's kind of what I was aiming for. But the 1 to 2, that means, 150, no more than 200 loss for each trade, because I'm aiming to make, and the way I trade, between 250 and 400 for a really good trade. The last one I made, clearly I surpassed that even. So that was an unusual trade. But as long as you are making more trades positive than less, then your biggest losses are smaller than your biggest gains, you will make money. All right, and this is kind of another thing, just reiterating, did I manage my risk properly? Did I ever eliminate the stops or have a one-to-one risk trade, anything like that? And I think I did well with all of them. Some of the trades were not definitely the best trades, but they were okay. They were still in that category. I followed these guys. So anyway, and then the last thing is the time frame that I trade really matters. And I've played around with this through the years, trying to figure out what is the ideal time frame to trade in. And my preference is between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning. That is the best time because it's a little bit slower. You don't have a lot of big moves unless there is a report coming out by the Fed or something like that. And then after 9:30, or at least after 9:15, when you have that initial fast movement of the market opening and then going, it usually makes a run one direction or the other and just moves so fast. It jumps at the very least. It just jumps all over the place. So you're very likely to get stopped out until it starts to, even out, slow down a little bit. So between, I don't like to trade between 9:30 and 9:45. So after 9:45, but not after 10:30. After 10:30, it slows down so much because everybody's kind of stopped trading that you sit here for hours without it really going anywhere at all. So that's really not an ideal time to trade either. So my ideal windows obviously are between 8:30 and 9:30, and then after 9:45, but before 10:30. So I was almost in that window this morning. I did fudge it a little bit. I didn't quite wait till 9:15, but it wasn't bad. The reason that I did it, I think, was good. I think I saw what it was doing and I acted on it. So that was this morning's trading, and I appreciate you joining. Hopefully this wasn't too long to have a decent educational sort of helping video. So thanks.